Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Simon Says here at mtgoacademy.com. And apart from the Theros 8-4 draft that I bring you every 2 weeks, I have this opening discussion for you, which is inspired by the top 8 of Grand Prix Valencia, from which I've just returned doing live video coverage with my colleague Mate Bigzy Zadelkai. In the top 8 we have featured Valentin of Austria, who dominated the Swiss with a 10-0-1 record, 10 wins and a draw, and then drafted a sweet black deck in the top 8. At a point during the draft we really thought that his deck was unbeatable. He was stopped in the top 4, however. So he's qualified for the Pro Tour, but didn't manage to take everything down. I thought that there was a very interesting draft and some very interesting decisions, basically having to decide between a heroic strategy and a black control strategy. And I feel like there's a couple of decisions where Valentin could have been a little more clear into which direction his deck was heading, and who knows, maybe that would have improved his chances, maybe not, but I thought it was interesting to go over some of the choices, not to make Valentin feel bad or anything, just because it is an interesting exercise in draft dynamics. So let's see what we have. This is the first pack of Valentin Makul's draft, and the top card is always the card that Valentin picked, and the cards on the bottom are basically the alternatives from the pack. Valentin starts off strong with a Wingsteed Rider over Nylea's Emissary, out of a pack that also has Fanatics of Mogis, and Sealock Monster. Observant Elseid is another white card there, but still, the signals are standing are alright, and you're picking up a super powerful card. I really like this pick. Next pack is really empty, but after having started with a white card, Valentin is happy to pick up Triad of Fates. I think that's reasonable, given that the second best card was probably Lash of the Whip or something equally unexciting. And you probably don't want to start with a white card and a black card and then pass the white-black rare. However, I think that Triad of Fates is really not all that exciting and shouldn't impact your decisions that much afterwards. Third pick is Nylea's Emissary, which works really well with Wingsteed Rider. Definitely good to pick that up as the alternative Read the Bones, as it has the same color as Triad of Fates, but that's basically all it has going for it. Next up is one of the defining picks of the draft. A fourth pick, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, shows Valentin that black is the color to be in at this table. And what's crazy about this is that the same pack has Nimbus Naiad, Voyages, and Anthessa's Emissary. And I'm still not sure if picking Grey Merchant is correct here. It does work best with Triad of Fates, but this is also a huge blue signal. I still don't know how 3 people can pick a card, and then there is still Nimbus Naiad, Voyages, and Anthessa's Emissary in the pack. However, I think that picking the black card here with a Triad of Fates that combos with it already is definitely a smart move. You cause some troubles down the road with people fighting over blue, you know how to avoid blue, and you are open towards just drafting a sweet black deck. Now, Triad of Fates is white just like Wingsteed Rider, but to me Wingsteed Rider is really a card you want to have in a deck with a reasonable amount of white cards. And of course with a heroic theme, that means tricks and bestow, whereas Triad of Fates is really just a catalyst for Grey Merchant of Asphodel. But just to be clear, Grey Merchant is the great card and Triad of Fates is just okay in that regard. Valentin then just continues picking black cards. A Baleful Eidolon out of a rather empty pack. I believe there's a Viper's Kiss or something similar still there. But still, fifth pick, Baleful Eidolon is a good sign. Then he takes Pharika's Cure out of a pack that has Boon of Erebos and Tormented Hero. I should probably sort them this way. And here, it's the first decision point. Pharika's Cure, to me, is a key card in the black control deck. And Triad of Fates, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, definitely push you into this direction. Whereas Tormented Hero can be really, really good in the rare black aggressive decks, and it is a heroic card. It works really well with Wingseed Rider, although the mana isn't perfect, so you are going to have the little more inconsistent deck. Tormented Hero, Wingseed Rider, Baleful Eidolon is also a great side. And of course you would like to play Grey Merchant and you would play Tide of Fates, but it's a completely different direction you're taking this deck when you're taking the Tormented Hero here. I love Farika's Cure, but given that the Wingseed Rider is still a possibility, I think that Tormented Hero would have been a very valuable alternative. With Boon of Erebos, I'm really just mentioning because I like it a lot, and it also shows how deeply black the packs were. So a good chance of going for the mono black strategy, which is the alternative to the heroic strategy in this case. So I like Farika's Cure as a pick. The next 3 packs have Scorchmark, Gardens of Moletis, and Fellhide Minotaur out of unimpressive packs, and then the last pack that has something reasonable has Return Centaur and Unknown Shores. Valentin takes Unknown Shores here, and I don't understand this pick at all. If you end up in an almost mono-black strategy, you don't want the Unknown Shores. You can still play a couple of off-color lands, and it won't cost you much. If you end up in a black-white heroic deck with bad mana, then you don't want Unknown Shores because it isn't going to cast Tormented Hero, and it isn't going to help you fix the mana for Wingsteed Rider, at least not in a reasonable way. So I really don't like the Unknown Shores here. Return Centaur is a reasonable black card. It cuts off black even more than you've already done, and it's actually pretty good in the black control strategy. Don't understand this pick, and yeah, maybe the Emissary played a part there, although I also don't like casting this for 5 or 7 respectively. Alright, so pack 1, not too amazing, but a good start. Definitely great black signals, so this is basically what to take away from this pack, and Valentin is ready to just go nuts with the black cards in pack 2. Alright, let's talk about pack 2 then. Now, keep in mind, Valentin has a lot of black cards, 2 Farika's Cures, a Scorchmark, Fellhide Minotaur, Grey Merchant, and Baleful Eidolon. With the Tide of Fates, could go for a black strategy. Also has a Wingseed Rider, hasn't seen any white signals though. However, a lot of the cards he has, Scorchmark, Baleful Eidolon, Wingseed Rider, do lend themselves to an aggressive heroic strategy if he wants to go that way. The mana of Farika's Cure, Wingsteed Rider, just in general, the mana of black-white isn't going to be pretty. You can already see that the deck, according to the signals at the table, is going to be heavy black. But and that is going to mean Wingseed Rider is worse than it could be. So still, this is what you have to keep in mind, starting with pack 2. Valentin opens up a pack with Keepsake Gorgon, and there is also Prognostic Sphinx, Farika's Cure, and Bone of Erebos. Now I'm going to throw this Prognostic Sphinx away, simply because this is going to be either a black deck or a black-white deck, and we aren't going to take a double blue card. It's pretty clear that Keepsake Gorgon is the pick here. It is good in both of the strategies we've talked about. It's just so powerful that you want it in any of your decks. The interesting pick, I think, is pack 2, pick 2, where there is another Wingseed Rider in the pack, next to Battlewise Valor and Sip of Hemlock. Now, if this was pick 1 of pack 1, I would always take the Wingsteed Rider, without a doubt. However, we've so far not seen any white signals. We first picked the first rider, and now we are seeing a second picked rider, but we have no guarantee that we are going to get white cards from the left. Even if we do, we are probably not seeing any white cards from the right. So drafting this Wingseed Rider gives us another very important card for a black-white heroic deck. However, the chances that we actually end up in black-white heroic are rather slim. At this point, I would have liked to see Valentin say, I'm really drafting a Grey Merchant control deck. I won't be supporting Wingseed Rider, and maybe I want to play 3 planes to have Tide of Fates, simply because it's absolutely amazing with my other late game cards, although a bit clunky. However, Valentin doesn't take the Sip of Hemlock and goes with Wingseed Rider instead. So now we are back on track of potentially drafting a black-white heroic deck. I can respect this decision because Wingseed Rider is more powerful and allows for the more unfair things. So the draft continues. Erebos' Emissary. As you see, black is wide open this draft, and Valentin is reaping the benefits. Erebos' Emissary, clear pick over Bloodtroll Harpy, no questions asked. Then a Divine Verdict. Only card in consideration is a Scourge Mark. Now, Scourge Mark is good if you are forcing the heroic strategy, but we have one already, and we are lacking in removal, having passed the Sip of Hemlock, and Pharika's Cure not really dealing with all that much. I like the Verdict pick here. Ordeal of Erebos is next. So now we are actually from the 5 picks, 3 of them are exceptional in the heroic strategy. Wingsteed Rider, Erebos' Emissary, and Ordeal of Erebos. And Keepsake Gorgon and Divine Verdict are fine additions to that, of course. Then we pick up a God's Willing, okay. Further picking up some white cards and working towards a heroic strategy. And then Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This is a 7th pick Grey Merchant, and we already have one. So, in a sense, this is the dream of the black drafter. However, I want you to think about the alternative. The alternative is a Baleful Eidolon, and doesn't this look like we're drafting Black-White Heroic now? Do we want a second Grey Merchant of Asphodel in a deck that needs almost as many plains as swamps? Do we want a Grey Merchant of Asphodel in a deck that has to play a lot of, well, tricks and not too many permanents? This is a really difficult decision, and I would have liked to see Valentin pick up the Eidolon here. Even if he ends up in a control strategy, he is almost guaranteed to be the only or one of the only 2 black drafters at the table, so his late game is already looking super strong. Baleful Eidolon, on the other hand, is the card that you want in the control strategy, but it's also going to work wonders in any kind of heroic deck. And you have 2 Wingsteed Riders already, otherwise it wouldn't be close. But having 2 Wingsteed Riders, adding 0 Devotion and 9 Plains to your deck, does make Baleful Eidolon look quite interesting to me. I'm not decided on this one yet, but I think it's a lot closer than Valentin made it out to be. Next pick, another Pharika's Cure. We definitely have enough Pharika's Cures now. I'm actually not sure. I think this might be a mistake here. Yeah, this hasn't been drafted yet. Let me check. Yes, sorry, I made a small mistake. So this Pharika's Cure isn't actually there, as far as I can tell. It doesn't really matter all that much, but we have one Pharika's Cure, and then this is actually the second one. And then we are at the first pack again, and then it's Pharika's Cure, a Boon of Erebos. And Valentin just takes Pharika's Cure here. So we get the third Pharika's Cure. And now I feel like it has to be clear that we are in the black control strategy. We've taken Grey Merchant over Baleful Eidolon. We've picked the second Pharika's Cure, and then we've taken the third Pharika's Cure. And you actually just don't want to pair Pharika's Cure with Wingsteed Rider. It doesn't work. The mana doesn't work, and it's just not a good strategic combination, even though you could cast Pharika's Cure on Wingsteed Rider. If you are still planning to build a heroic deck, you actually have to pick Boon of Erebos over Pharika's Cure, and I'm not in any way kidding about that. However, if you take Pharika's Cure, then at this stage in the game, I don't see playing Wingsteed Rider, I don't see playing God's Willing, and I'm probably splashing Triad of Fates, but only because I have the 2 Grey Merchants. And then Divine Verdict depends on if we still get to pick up sufficient black removal spells, because Divine Verdict is not too exciting. Now then, the Sip of Hemlock is gone, so Battlewise Valor tables, a card that would be good in the heroic deck that we now can't draft anymore. At least that's what I'm thinking. And then the black cards just start coming. Bloodtroll Harpy is there. Then there's Dark Betrayal and Scorchmark. We already have a Scorchmark, and as we've said, we are now looking towards drafting control, so Valentin picks the Dark Betrayal. So far, so good. Another Dark Betrayal rounds out the pack, and this Baleful Eidolon is gone, of course. So what happens is Baleful Eidolon is gone, Scorchmark doesn't get picked, Sip is gone, and here we don't take the boon, but the Pharika's Cure. And all of these cards are now in Valentin's pile with, well, some of them we already know we aren't going to play, and to my my impression was that we are now looking at cutting white almost completely, cutting these 4 cards, only leaving these 2 white cards in the deck. We have 2 Dark Betrayals for the sideboard, which leaves us with an Ordeal of Erebos that's actually not great in this deck, because we aren't really... We haven't picked up any of the 1-drops yet, and we aren't in the heroic archetype anymore. So in fact, Ordeal of Erebos still needs some 1-drops or something else to be good. Even the Scorchmark isn't amazing. So, like I said, I would have liked to see this Grey Merchant be another Baleful Eidolon, and this deck going towards a heroic deck. Like I said, it's not easy, but if you imagine this Pharika's Cure being a Boon of Erebos, then personally I like it better, even though the mana is going to be worse. Alright, but this is where we're at, and now we're entering pack number 3. Alright, time for pack 3, and I hope you still have that dilemma in mind. The dilemma if you are a black-white heroic deck with powerful cards but bad mana, or if you are a mono-black deck splashing Triad of Fates to go for the Grey Merchant control strategy. Now, Agent of the Fates has the advantage that it's insane in either deck, so Valentin is super happy to pick that up, of course picking that instead of Sentry of the Underworld or Blood Troll Harpy. The next 2 picks are rather simple, with the Blood Troll Harpy and a Grey Merchant really making this deck look even better than it was before. Now, keep in mind that we've looked at this deck, and we've basically seen two possible builds. The black-white heroic deck, but that has basically passed by at this stage, and the mono-black control strategy. Now, Agent of the Fates means that it's once again more interesting to play Ordeal of Erebos, Scorchmark, Bestow Creatures, of which you have some really great ones. Erebos Emissary comes to mind. However, it is basically clear at this point that this mana base and this heavy black deck with 3 Grey Merchants of Asphodel isn't going to support the 2 Winged Steed Riders. Which means that picking Agent of the Fates is going to be great, but it's not as good as first picking an Agent of the Fates. You aren't going to make this mono-black control deck, you aren't going to turn this mono-black control deck into a heroic deck at the last second. So this is very important for the rest of this for the rest of these picks. Now, Heliod's Emissary is definitely more powerful than Disciple of Phoenix. However, I'm very sure about this. Disciple of Phoenix is one of the cards that you actively want in your black control decks. It generates a little bit of card advantage, it gives you information, it gives you 2 black devotion symbols, which is super important with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and it is bomb protection at the same time. Disciple of Phoenix is a really, really important card for black control strategies. Heliod's Emissary is amazing, and it's of course best in white aggressive strategies, with mostly the 4 mana cost being relevant and the 7 mana cost being alright if you happen to draw too many lands. However, I think that Heliod's Emissary is only the pick if we would still be looking at a Winged Steed Rider build. The deck that we are building with the Grey Merchant of Asphodels is much more interested in Disciple of Phoenix. Next pick is a Cavern Lampet over Scorchmark. Both are worse in the control deck and better in the heroic build, and then Cavern Lampet is, I suppose, slightly better. And now it gets interesting. We get as we've seen, Valentin is the only black drafter at the table. In the end, all the other decks combined had 3 black cards total in their main deck. So Valentin was quite lucky to be in the position he was in, and the packs showed. This pack had Tormented Hero, Insatiable Harpy, Flash Mad Steed, and Sip of Hemlock. Valentin picks a Tormented Hero here, which I could quite understand because he was tempted towards going into this a little more aggressive heroic strategy. Agent of the Fates, Heliod's Emissary, Cavern Lampet, Tormented Hero, some of the lesser cards he had already, Ordeal of Erebos, maybe even some of the white cards like the God's Willing. However, and this is something where Mate was very vocal about, Insatiable Harpy is the pick here. And one could even make an argument that Sip of Hemlock is better than Tormented Hero in the deck that Valentin, well, wasn't trying to draft, but should have been trying to draft. Valentin has to draft the best possible mono-black control deck at this stage. Whether or not splashing a white card or not doesn't really matter. And Insatiable Harpy is a great way to stay alive, and it's another 4-drop in the deck that doesn't have many 4-drops yet. Look at this, 3, 3, 5, 4, although it's white. Another 4 that's rather weak, and then you can pair Erebos' Emissary, Try to Fates with Insatiable Harpy. I argued with Matei a little bit and made some arguments for Tormented Hero. I'm sorry, Matei, Insatiable Harpy is definitely correct when you look at how the overall draft has been going. Like I said, I now think that Tormented Hero is really a trap that Valentin somehow fell in. And then there is another Tormented Hero. There is Rescue from the Underworld. We already have 3 Grey Merchants. But even better, there is Returned Phalanx, and we don't have too many early drops yet. Returned Phalanx being the optimum when it comes to early ground defense. Tormented Hero carries Ordeal of Erebos better, but what you really want to be doing is cutting the white creatures, the white targeting effects, and then it's very easy to just don't play Ordeal of Erebos, not play Scorchmark, and only have the best possible cards to choose from, which isn't really a problem because your deck is just chock full of good cards anyway. We don't even need the Cavern Lampad. We wouldn't need the Tormented Hero if we had the Insatiable Harpy, and we could definitely make great use of a Return Phalanx. Look at this control deck with 3 Grey Merchants and a Keepsake Gorgon. Probably not even playing the Divine Verdict to make the mana a bit better. Heliod's Emissary makes it, but is it really good in this deck? No, it's really a little bit more than a Hill Giant when you think about that. Now, Valentin goes with the second Tormented Hero, and then there is an 8th pick, Disciple of Phoenix. So passing the other one for Heliod's Emissary didn't really hurt too much at this stage. Now, interestingly enough, the pack that had Agent of the Fates had Sentry of the Underworld and Bloodtor Harpy. Now, this is about how the deck could look like at this stage, with these cards at the top added in. We don't have the Returned Phalanx, sadly, we have the Tormented Hero. And to me, this is pick 9 here, Bloodtor Harpy or Sentry of the Underworld. To me, it's very, very clear that you need a Bloodtor Harpy. You have 2 already, but you really want cheap cards with a black mana symbol, at least 1 black mana symbol. You can use the Bloodtor Harpy for defense, and your late game is superb with the 5 drops you already have. In addition, the Sentry of the Underworld costs white mana, which makes your mana base worse, and with so many Pharikis cures, that's really not what you want to be doing. My pick is definitely Bloodtor Harpy here, but Valentin decides to go for Sentry of the Underworld. So still sticking to a quite the heavy white plan, despite the fact that Wingseed Rider is effectively out of the equation at this stage. Now, the pick of Heliod's Emissary over Disciple of Phoenix doesn't come back to haunt Valentin, as Disciple of Phoenix wields, and so he gets the best of both worlds. Alright. The final picks are, let's see. Yeah, the last picks are the Scorchmark that was in the pack, and then Sip of Hemlock is gone. In my opinion, a card that Tormented Hero, that Valentin would have, Valentin the Tormented Hero would have had, would have loved to have. And of course, the Insatiable Harpy, which I put down here to show you that, is gone as well. This is pick 14, so somebody, of course, took these cards. Now, this is there is no 15th pick in these packs because of the basic land. So this is what ends up being in Valentin's deck from the draft. And then we kind of see where the problem is. With the 2 Wingseed Riders and quite a lot of support cards for a black-white heroic strategy, Valentin, in a sense, should be playing the Wingseed Riders. However, he hasn't fully committed to drafting a heroic deck. The Grey Merchants were too sweet to pass up on, and there were a lot of minor decisions that led to, at some points, heroic cards being favored over the control cards, and then at others, the control cards being favored towards the more aggressive or, more synergistic heroic cards, excuse me. And voila, in the end, this is what Valentin ends up playing. 6 planes is quite a lot, supporting 4 white cards, which, to be honest, I don't really like all that much. I understand that you want the Tide of Fates, but I think Heliod's Emissary, Sentry of the Underworld, and even the Divine Verdict are quite mediocre in this deck. You need the Divine Verdict because you don't have a single sip of Hemlock, and 3 Pharika's Cures aren't going to deal with the troublesome permanents, but this isn't really the white cards to get excited about. I don't like that there are 5 5-drops and 6 4-drops, with this and this and this being additional mana sinks, or at least this being a card that only gets active much later. You have the 2 Tormented Heroes and the Agent of the Fates, but you can only support them with Baleful Eidolon or Deal of Erebos and the uncommons, which are actually quite expensive to bestow and are going to be active at a point in time where your deck has virtually 0 chance of still being the aggressive deck. So, just like Mate said at the GP itself, Tormented Hero should have been Insatiable Harpy, and the whole deck should have been shifted and focused towards being a black control deck. We would want to see the Sip of Hemlocks here. Divine Verdict is fine, Tide of Fates is fine. That probably makes the splash a 4-plane splash. And then we just put all the good black control cards in this deck, which does weaken Agent of the Fates a bit, but at least you aren't forced to play a card like Ordeal of Erebos. Maybe you pick up a Boon of Erebos, which is actually a fine way to protect your creatures also. Now, the other build that's still possible with these cards is to go for more of a heroic strategy, including all of these cards. But then, of course, you have to make some other cuts. Then you probably can't play 3 Pharika's Cures because you need a high creature count. So let's just take these out. I'm not doing the exact math on these, but it's pretty obvious that you have to take out some of the more expensive stuff. Tide of Fates is really slow. I think that Disciple of Phoenix is an auto-include in almost all the black decks, but just to make some space, let's cut this and maybe... I don't want to think too much about this. It's not really too relevant what we cut here or how we do it. It's just quite obvious that Grey Merchant is so powerful that you have to play it. However, the deck with Ringsteed Rider would have to like to have an even more even distribution of black and white cards, which makes Grey Merchant worse. And so, if this Grey Merchant here was in fact a Baleful Eidolon, let's just do this real quick. I would already like this a lot better, and if there was just more aggressive cards to choose from early on and to make this truly a heroic deck. However, the table didn't really support a right heroic strategy, not at Valentin's position, and it is ambitious to pair white with black to build an aggressive heroic deck. It's just not how the colors are supposed to work out. So Valentin, despite having a super powerful deck with super powerful cards, was at the same time stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's really interesting how this deck on the surface, or this draft at the surface, looked like everything was perfect. He was in the right color, and he had all the packs to choose from, really. From pick 1 to 8, a great card and often a card wheeling, and still didn't manage to make a deck that was as good as it needed to be to win this GP. I said it in the beginning, I'm going to say it again. This isn't anything against Valentin. I think he did a great job, not only in the Swiss, but also during this top 8 draft. This was definitely a tough draft, which only looked like everything was falling into his lap on the surface. And this isn't even talking about the fact that there is a lot of variance in Magic, and that he might just have gotten unlucky with a different deck as well. However, if you want, check out his games, and you might see that his deck certainly didn't perform as powerful or as broken as one would have expected from seeing the draft and all these amazing cards pass by him. All right, I hope you're enjoying the show. Enjoy the draft as well, and then I'll be back in 2 weeks, I guess. I'm Simon Götzen. Enjoy the show.